Hi everyone, my name's Shannon and I'm a teacher here in Toronto, but my story is actually about teaching up in Nunavut, up in the high Arctic. So I have my whistle and I put the whistle between my lips and I blow as hard as I possibly can. And nothing happens. Now, I used to be a lifeguard, so I'm like really good at blowing a whistle, like really, really good at blowing a whistle. And I'm expecting, 20 teenage boys to just run towards me, have a knee, and listen to my instructions. Because, right, that's what teenage boys do. We all know that. They listen, especially to their basketball coaches. I decided I was going to be the basketball coach. So I thought they like basketball, they would listen to me. But that doesn't happen. What does happen? Now, I want you to imagine yourself in middle school, so you're grade 7 to 9, and take yourself into gym class. And just imagine, the worst supply teacher you ever had. So that was me, but, I wasn't a supply teacher. I got hired for this job. So imagine the worst supply teacher you ever had in gym class. Nobody's changed for gym because there's a supply teacher. Everyone's wearing jeans, they're wearing their t-shirts. They're just shooting around. And then they're chasing each other with basketballs, running around. And instead of being, that supply teacher that, kicks their legs up on the desk, opens the newspaper, and just relaxes, and is okay with all this chaos, I decide I want to control the chaos. So I take the whistle again. I put it between my lips, and this time I give 3 hard, confident blasts, like what I did as a lifeguard, to signal the end of that public swim. And again, nothing happens. Well, actually, what happens is we've gone from basketball to dodgeball. So seriously, so instead of actually shooting the basketballs, the boys are now whipping each other with the leather basketballs, not Nerf dodgeballs. And I'm just waiting for blood. And this is only my second day of teaching in this community. So I'm panicking and I don't know what to do. I take myself back to my days as a basketball player, and I think, well, what did my coach used to do? Well, she'd bring out the whistle, and she would blow the whistle, and she would say, hey, girls, baseline, go to the baseline. And we would all just hustle to the baseline because we loved running. And then we'd go to the baseline, and we'd start sprinting, wind sprints, and she would just run us to the ground. And she would just run until we learned our lesson. But, the boys aren't listening to my whistle, so what do I do? I don't know. The only thing I can think of is escaping. That's the only option I have right now, because actually at this point, so it was after school, my second day in the community, and all the teachers have gone home. Nobody stayed around to help me or see how things would go. The principal is also at home, but she left me her number in case I needed help. But I kind of want to prove that I can do this, right? That I can run a basketball practice. I'm volunteering. It's not even really part of my job. But so anyways, I decide, my only option really at this point is to escape, run away, because it really wouldn't make a difference if I'm there anyways, because nobody's listening to me. But then, if I ran away, where would I even go? If I was in Toronto, my solutions would be a bar. At this point, I'm feeling I really need a beer right now, but I'm decided by choice to live in a dry community, and the beer that I'm gonna brew hasn't brewed yet. So bar is out of the question. My other option would be yoga class, but there's no rec center, there's no yoga class. I do start one up later, but so far in the community there's no yoga. There's no restaurants, there's no cafe. I don't have any friends, so I just, yeah. Well, and I guess, I could leave the community, but there's only 1 flight per day. And actually, the flight today has already left. And there's supposed to be a snowstorm tomorrow, so the one tomorrow probably isn't going to go out. So I'm probably stranded here for at least another week. So, oh, and I could run away from the community, just run on the tundra, but it'd be miles and miles and miles and miles of running on endless tundra, just putting myself as a victim of a polar bear attack. So I decide to stick it out at practice. And I'm about to get the whistle out again because that's all I know how to do. When there's a big metallic bang, the gym door is opening and closing, and all the boys stop. Like the game of dodgeball stops. The boys hold the basketballs. And they turn towards the doors. And I watch them, and I see their jaws drop and their eyes like light up. It's like a celebrity has just entered the building, because one has. I turn and I look. And who do I see but an 18-year-old boy? I mean, an 18-year-old man. He steps in. And he's about my height. And probably about my weight. I mean, he's not that big of a guy, but to me, he looks huge, and I just feel so, so small. I know, I'm like playing with my whistle. And there's silence. The boys are looking at him. And this boy man, he is wearing, I know, in the story I didn't know to say if he was a boy or a man, so we'll say a boy man. And he's wearing sealskin boots that are like up to his knees. They're these comics. They're really beautiful. His grandmother probably made him, and actually his grandmother also made me a pair as well. They're in my freezer back in Ottawa, actually. So I'm gonna have to get them before my parents sell the house, but my brothers can remind me of that. So he's wearing these comics, and then he's also has these basketball shoes, red and white high tops draped around his shoulder. And he's just like oozing confidence. There's this aura around him. He's like lifting his chin up, and his chest is proud. To me, he just looks like a statue of like a Greek god. And I feel so small just fiddling with my whistle. And so he is also wearing this big purple parka. And the parka looks like kind of like a Phoenix Sun jersey. Like it has a basketball that's like a shooting star. And I know that I don't need him to turn around and show me the back of his parka to know his name. So we will flash back to yesterday, the day before, when I met Anne. So Anne is another teacher from Ontario, but she's about my mom's age. And she's been working in the Arctic for about 5 years, so she has a lot of experience, and she has some advice for a first-year teacher like me on kind of how to survive. So she finds me after my first day of teaching to see how it goes. It went terribly, pretty much like basketball. Like on my last period gym class, I actually had to like walk around one by one and ask the kids their names, because like no one would listen when I tried to call attendance. So it was pretty similar to basketball. So what she says to me is, she says, you know, Shannon, the kids here, they're just not going to respect you like ever if you don't find some way to connect with them. You have to find some way to kind of contribute to making their lives meaningful. And then she says, well, last year, what did I do? Well, I started up this grade 7 to 9 junior boys basketball team club. They're not really a real team, because in the community, there's already the girls team, and there's also the senior boys. So these boys just come and shoot around. They're not like a real team. But I've recruited this year this one player, Tyson. He's the captain of the senior team. He wears this big purple parka with his name, Tyson, on the back. You probably know him if you saw him. Then she asked me, do you know much about basketball? And then I look around, I think like, what? Do me, know much about basketball? Like when I was in high school, I lived and breathed basketball. Like my high school team went to OFSA and I was the captain. I just loved basketball. Everything I did was basketball, basketball, basketball. I even had this hideous, yellow, kind of this lemon yellow, St. Paul's Golden Bears. I'm from Ottawa, so I went to school there. St. Paul's Golden Bears hoodie that I would wear everywhere. Like it was the brightest lemon yellow, and it had this big orange basketball, and then it had my name, Shannon, on the back, captain on the sleeve, and then had my number, 33. So I lived and breathed basketball. So I'm looking at practice now, and I'm looking at Tyson, and he's sitting on the gym floor, and he's lacing up those red and white high tops. And, you know, the gym is still quiet. It kind of feels like the principal has walked into the room and just stayed there, because now practice is going really, really, really well. The boys, Tyson hasn't even said anything. All he's done is walk over and put his shoes on, and the boys have already divided themselves up into 2 lines. And they're running layups. So I think about the practice plan in my pocket. Like, I really spent a long time coming up with the practice plan. And I look at the time on the clock. Okay, it's 4:15, 15 minutes late. Like, according to me, by now we would have already done layups, 3-man weave. We do a continuous shooting drill. The boys are doing layups. I figure, like, that's okay. So I joined the layup line. Let's fast forward ahead to January. So I come back after Christmas, after my Christmas break, and we're into the first practice in January. And with me, I bring this big, oversized duffel bag. And I just drop it into the center of the gym. And of course, nobody looks at me or even notices. The balls are flying around. I mean, less chaotically. Like, by this point, we've progressed past dodgeball, but I have become an expert, like, jumping away from the ball. But balls are flying all over the place, and I know by now that, like, the whistle doesn't work. So I go and find Tyson, and he's helping one of the kids, Ethan, with his 3-point shot. And I pull Tyson aside, and I say, "Hey, Tyson, like, I was actually able to find some jerseys. One of my friend's dads used to coach the Kingston Cavaliers, and we have this big duffel bag of jerseys, and I'm wondering if maybe you could hand them out to the boys. But maybe if you could do it in a way that makes them feel, like, really special, like we're, like, a real team." So Tyson right away just starts yelling things in Inuktitut that I can't understand. And all of a sudden, the boys are, like, jumping and high-fiving each other, really excited. They're, like, hugging each other. They hug Tyson. They high-five. I mean, nobody hugs me or looks at me, but they're really excited. And so then they run to the center of the gym where the duffel bags are, and they sit down, and they're kind of fighting for a spot right at the front. And Tyson just walks over, and he kind of does what Marsha did over there, and he puts up his hand up, and everyone's silent. And then Tyson opens the zipper of the duffel bag really, really, really slowly. And there's 20 eyes staring at him as he does it. Actually, 21, including me. And then he bends down, and he brings up this green metallic Kingston Cavaliers jersey. And it says Cavaliers in silver letters, and it has the number 33 just right on the stomach. And the boys, their mouths are wide open, their eyes are big, they're really, really excited. And so I see Tyson take a deep breath. He prepares for his pep talk. He says, "Boys, now we're a real team. We're the Cavaliers. But this means we're going to have to start having real practices. Maybe we're going to play a real game." And all of a sudden, the boys start talking really, really, really fast. And it's mostly in Inuktitut, so I can't understand. But I can pick up some words, and I'm able to piece together that, possibly the closest that we could go would be 1 day by snowmobile to the next community. And I am panicking because I have never been on a snowmobile. But they're really excited. But I say, well, if we're going to have to play a real game and have real practices, when I was in high school, we actually used to come before school at 7 a.m. for practice. So I think if we're going to be a real team, maybe we should come at 7 a.m. This is my first coaching point of the whole season, 5 months. So the boys agree, and they nod their heads, they nod their heads, they nod their heads. And I know that nobody's going to show up because I have actually 5 of the boys in my first period English class, and they hardly ever come for first period class. At the school where I taught, kind of nobody really comes in the morning, but everyone comes for gym. So the next day, I'm up and I'm walking to work. It's 6:50 a.m. and it's -40. And it's the dark season. So I'm not sure if anybody here has been to the Arctic, but above the Arctic Circle, the sun sets in around Remembrance Day in November, and it doesn't come up again until Valentine's Day. So now we're in January, so it's pitch black. I can't see anything because I'm wearing these big ski goggles and they're kind of covered with frost, but it's also the dark season, so like I wouldn't see anything anyways. And it's -40, so it's really, really cold, but I have this gigantic parka on, and so I don't actually feel cold. Like underneath my parka, I'm actually kind of sweating. It's this beautiful big parka that was made. It was purple, made by one of the elders there, and it has this big raccoon fur hood and kind of like this polar bear trim. But I know that it's really cold because as I'm walking to work, I feel like a crunch underneath my feet. And it sort of sounds like, like that sound like you're like biting into like a really crisp piece of celery. It's just like that crunch, 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 crunch. So I know it's really, really cold. It's cold and it's dark and I'm thinking, what am I doing? Why am I awake? Like nobody is going to show up for practice. And I mean, it doesn't really matter if I show up because no one listens to me anyways. So I may as well just go back to bed and like listen to the CBC like radio, which is the only channel and it's like in Inuktitut. So, and just kind of wait until my alarm goes off. But anyways, I'm walking to school, that crunch, 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 crunch of celery beneath my feet, and I hear a, "Hey, you're late." And then I pull up my ski goggles just above my parka, and then I see there's actually like about 20 bodies huddled in front of the school. And I say, and Tyson says, "We thought you weren't going to show up." So I'm the last one actually to get to practice. So I open the gym doors and we all file in and we take off our parkas and we put them on the stage. And we're all wearing our metallic green Kingston Cavaliers jerseys. And then, because it's a real practice, Tyson suggests, and this is what his team does before practice, that we'll huddle together. So we huddle together, I guess it's 22 of us. We huddle together, we get really close, so our shoulders are touching, and we kind of feel like a family. And he says, everyone in, everyone in, everyone in. So we put our hands in the center, everyone's hands on top of each other's, so we were touching, feeling like a real family. And then Tyson looks at me and I look at him, and he says, "Okay, ready? Calves on 3. 1, 2, 3, calves!" And then I take my whistle, and I proudly blow the whistle, and everyone's ready to start our first real practice. Thank you.
Shannon Mullen!